Welcome to the Rundown Podcast. I'm Sunny Galt, and I'm a messenger with United Network News. UNN is the official news channel for CARE, which stands for the Center for Amity and Restoration of Earth, because we are here to empower you guys to bring in what we call the new Earth, to restore our planet and to make it what we know it can become, the amazing place we know it can become. But in order to do that, you need to know what's happening in the world, right? We all need to get to know each other a little bit better. So we have a newscast that's released through our website at unitednetwork.earth, and our newscast comes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Now, if you want more information about that and how you can get instant access to that, visit the website for more information. This podcast is a week in review. So we just wrapped up last week. I'm recording this on a Saturday. So I'm going to do a quick review of the 3 newscasts that we just had this previous week. And this is a great way for you guys to catch up on stories if you happen to miss a newscast, because I know some of them can go kind of long depending on what we're talking about in the World Situation Report. But this is also a great opportunity for you to share UNN with other people, because our newscasts for that first week are behind a paywall. You know, if you want the news right away, you're going to have to become a member, and we know not everyone can do that. However, after the week is up, we do release our newscast, the complete newscast, on both YouTube and Rumble. So that's another great way that you can get people interested in what we're talking about. But like I said, this podcast is a nice little way to wrap up some of the stories and get caught up so you're ready to go on Monday with all the new stuff we're going to talk about. So we cover local stories through our field messengers and the reports that they bring us. We talk about the new Earth. We interview people that encourage us and inspire us to go out there and create the world we want to create, right? That we want to be part of, that we want our kids to be part of. We talk about regional stories, which are more stories focused on, the different continents and things like that, things that are happening. You may hear some of these stories in other places, but we want to give you a well-rounded idea of what's happening on our planet right now. And then we have what we call our World Situation Report. And I've got a few sound bites that we're going to include in today's podcast because we had the big eclipse this week. And of course, the deep state had to do whatever it is the deep state does, try to bring us all down, bring down humanity, try to end the world, typical deep state stuff. So we'll update you guys on all of that good stuff. I've got a few sound bites. We have Kimberly Gogan from the Office of the Guardian that joins us for that, and that's coming up at the end. As with all of our newscasts, all the podcasts we release, we always encourage you guys to think critically. Don't just accept something because we say it. Do your own research. You can take some of the people that we're going to talk about, the locations we're going to talk about. You can do some of your own research online and connect these dots for yourself, because it's not enough anymore for anybody to just tell you something. That's how we got into this mess. We just bought all the lies that, mainstream media and our so-called experts and people that were supposed to have our back gave us. So we can't do that anymore. So think critically and ask questions. All right, before we get started, do I have any announcements for you? The only thing I have to say is for the last few days, I have had a little bit of a sore throat. It's okay at the moment. I actually have this thing going on in my house right now. Some of my kiddos are sick. So hopefully I'll get through this entire podcast episode. We should be good. And it might be tied to something that we're going to talk about in the World Situation Report. I don't know. We'll see. There's some sicknesses going around. All right. Well, today is Saturday, April 13th, 2024. And here is the rundown of stories you may have missed this week on UNN. All right. Let's bring in our field messengers and get an update on some of the incredible stories they brought us this week. So in each newscast, we have at least 2 field messenger reports. These are everyday people like you that literally take their cell phones and tell us what's happening in their community, because it is really important for us to get to know each other again without all the stereotypes and the agendas. Let's just get to know each other and each other's areas. And we think the best way to do that is for you guys to tell your own stories. Now, people take footage, they do voiceovers and stuff like that, and then they send it to our production team, and we've got a great team that puts stuff together for us. I do encourage you guys to check out these reports on your own. A lot of these are very visual, but I do want to do a quick rundown of the stories so you know what to expect and perhaps what stories to look for when the newscast comes out if you're watching it for free. If you're a member, you can hop on the app, the desktop app, or the apps we have available on mobile, and check it out right away. All right, let's get started. So on Monday, we had 2 reports, one from Mwanda Michael, and he's based out of Uganda, and he introduces us to what's called a headmistress. So this is a woman from the local school, and when the pandemic hit, she needed some additional income. So this is her story of starting a pig farm and what that entailed, why she started it. We get to see some of the pigs, if you like that kind of thing. But this just shows you what people had to do in different parts of the world when everything was on lockdown. Maybe she wasn't getting as much money from the school anymore. Maybe they couldn't meet at all. Maybe they couldn't pay their teachers. We don't really know what the situation was, but we know that this woman was quick on her feet to come up with this idea for this pig farm. So I encourage you guys to check that out. Alisi Francis out of Nigeria. Now, this is interesting. So he shows us a Nigerian farm where they have their beekeeping operations. Now, when I think of beekeeping, this is not the video that I would typically think of because they have theirs. It kind of looks like a jungle area, and they have different little stations. I'll just call them stations where they have these bees in these, different boxes and things like that. But he talks about their operation, how they make it work, how they decide where to put these little stations, the honey production, and how it goes out for commercial purposes and how it helps their area. So those are Monday's stories. Then on Wednesday, we have Rosemary from Australia, and she shows us a farm. I'll call it a farm. It looks more like just a really nice greenery area, but she called it a farm. So a farm in Queensland. It's called Nature's Intentions, and we talk with the woman behind it, and we learn more about how this farm or this area came about. So there's a lot of different plants. It's very beautiful. What I thought was interesting about this story is the woman who started it talked about how the ancestors who have previously passed away, how they actually inspired her to make this place more natural to help it thrive. So I thought that was a really interesting part of this story, but I encourage you guys to check that out. Then Nibiria Annette out of Uganda, she shows us a local family in her area, and they support each other by making bricks. Now, this is one of those things, especially in the Western world, we don't think too much about. But there is a process for doing this, and you can certainly still do it by hand. And I'm sure they're probably even better than the ones that we make. I don't even know how bricks are made, out here in the Western world. But it was very interesting. And they even talked about, okay, so passersby, how would they know that there are fresh bricks that they could buy? So they actually take the bricks and they put it on top of the roof so they can see the fresh bricks that have been made. It's just really interesting. That's definitely a video that you need to see to fully appreciate. And then on Friday, we have a couple stories. So Emma from Spain, she takes us in her backyard because she has what's called a moringa tree. And moringa can also mean miracle, so a miracle tree. And she's growing it in her backyard, and she takes some of the leaves off of it and she grinds it down into what she calls the moringa leaf powder. So she literally takes like a coffee grinder and grinds it down. She does it by hand, so she's moving the grinder and then it grinds up the powder. And then she says she uses that in various smoothies and shakes, and you could put it in anything. But it is great. It's got a lot of vitamins and nutrients in it. And again, she's just growing it right in her backyard. And then Steve from Alberta, Canada, he takes us outside where it is still pretty cold in Canada. There's snow covering the ground, but spring is on its way. Technically, it's arrived, but he shows us some of the early signs of spring. The snow is starting to melt. He shows us some buds on the trees, and really, we're just appreciating life. So thank you, Steve. Now it's time to talk about the new Earth. So this is what we want our planet to be. We are well on our way into restoration. I know humanity hasn't had a huge part in that yet. I mean, we've been holding the light, but as far as the physicality of it and restoring our planet, we haven't done that yet. But there have been a lot of things that have been happening on our planet to restore it. And you guys are all a part of that. And the New Earth, we talk about where we want things to go. We talk about our superhuman abilities. We highlight people that are doing incredible things on this planet because we all need inspired from time to time. So we kick things off usually with an interview. And on Monday, we brought Dr. Anna Michalcha onto the show. She is a board-certified internal medicine physician. She's got over 20 years of clinical experience. And I love talking with Dr. Anna because she is no holds barred. She will tell you exactly as it is. And we talked to her a lot about how our healthcare has been hijacked. And in this particular segment, we're talking about nanotechnology. So this is technology. It's really, really small, nano, right? And it's not necessarily bad, okay? It's being used for nefarious purposes now because we know there were nanotechnology in the jabs, the COVID jabs, and it's creating a whole bunch of issues within the body. And Dr. Anna goes through that, and she talks about what she's personally seen. But what I love about Dr. Anna and what she also brings to this piece is that it's not that the technology necessarily is bad. It's that the intention behind it was bad to use it against humanity. But moving forward, because we're always thinking about the new earth and where we can go with things, we can use nanotechnology for good. All right. So just because something is being used for bad now doesn't mean we can't turn that and use it for good. And so very interesting piece. Then on Wednesday, we talk with Pam Stowell-Boone. She is an osteopath, a kinesiologist, and a holistic mind-body-spirit coach. And this is part of a 3-part series that we've done with Pam. She talked about the importance of your mind and what exactly are we talking about? When we talk about mind, body, spirit, okay, what's the mind? Then we did a segment on the body. Now, this is the 3rd part in that series. We're talking about your spirit. And the point that Pam brings up is that we are not taking care of our spirit. Most of us are not. So, for example, our spirit loves when we are happy. When we are doing the things that we love to do, our spirit just soars, okay? But if we're not happy, this can actually cause a lot of problems within the body. This can cause disease and inflammation and sickness and a whole host of problems. So she talks about maintaining your spirit and lifting your spirit up, because this relates to your body and your overall health as well. And then on Friday, we talk with Grace Gravestock. I love her title. Her title is Quantum Change Advisor. So she helps people specifically when it comes to inspiring them, specifically with their career path. What are you going to do? And one of the things we know with the New Earth is that your career, what you do to help humanity, may be changing. Because so many of us, we're kind of in that mindset of we have to do this job because we have to make a paycheck. We have healthcare needs. We've got different things we have to take care of. We have to take care of our family. But what if that stuff was already taken care of? What if the finances for that were already taken care of? Then we can lead with things that are heart-centered. And so that's what Grace focuses on. And this particular interview is about gaining clarity for your career. How do you know what you would be good at? What should you be doing moving forward? And it's not so much, should. It's more just to help you determine, am I in the right space? Or should I be moving? Should I be doing something else with my life? So she's got some tips for us and some strategies that she uses even in her own life to get more clarity. So she shares those with us. Now we've got a few stories that I thought were really interesting in each of the New Earth segments that we do. We do, I think, at least 3 stories in addition to the interview. So we did a story on coconut oil pulling. And the pulling part always throws me off because I'm like, what are you pulling? But that's just the title of it. So this is an ancient practice, and it involves swishing coconut oil in your mouth for 10 to 15 minutes. Now, That seems like a long time to me because I'm thinking like mouthwash, you just swish it around a little bit. But in order to get the full benefits, it really is 10 to 15 minutes. And what it does is it promotes healthy teeth and gums. See, we don't hear about this stuff. Have you guys ever gone to the dentist? And the dentist is like, yeah, try coconut oil pulling. No, that doesn't happen, right? And so this is something that you can do. It removes harmful bacteria. It lessens the plaque in your mouth and combats bad breath. So maybe something you want to give a try. Maybe do a little bit more searching online and see if that's a good fit for you. Now let's talk about solutions to bullying, right? So in schools, or it doesn't have to be in schools. I guess adults can be bullied too. But this specific story is about what's going on in Switzerland, and it does involve the schools. So they are shifting from punishment to what they call building understanding when it comes to bullying. So it's not just like bad bully, don't do that again. It's about teaching and having everyone participate and come to the table to come up with some sort of conclusion here. So they say they have this no blame approach, and their whole goal is to make schools safer. And this includes, first, there is a personal discussion between a trusted teacher and the victim. Okay, so the person that was bullied. And then there is a separate group that meets, and this is more of a group discussion with the bully. There's different student leaders, and the victim is there as well. I believe the teacher is there. And there's no accusations. It's not like, you shouldn't have done that, bully, that kind of stuff. But it is talking about, I'm sure, emotions and feelings and things like that. And just trying to get this out of the blame game and just focus on healing, which is really interesting. And our final story is about drones that are doing tree planting. Now, normally we would say there is a bond that you have with seeds, okay? And seeds can respond really well to humanity when you hold it in your hands. I know some people even swish it in their mouth, get that DNA going before you plant it. However, this story focuses on a company out of Canada. It's called Flash Forest. And they have a little bit different twist on this. So they are using drones for tree planting, and they plan to plant, say that 5 times fast, 1 billion trees by 2028 using aerial drones. So this is how it got started. There was a devastating fire, and it burned up a huge area. So if you have fire, if things are dangerous, if things are hard to get to, we're not talking about someone's backyard, right? We're talking about probably an area where it was pretty much scorched earth for a big portion of land, right? Well, they can use these drones and shoot seed pods at a high velocity from up high, right? And they shoot it into the ground. So that way it's safer for everybody. They said they can plant about 5 pods per second. So again, I'm a big fan of holding the seeds in your hand and doing all that good stuff. But if that's not an option, this is kind of interesting. Let's talk about what's happening in various regions on our planet. So in each newscast, we have many stories that focus on the different regions. And I can't get to all of them. Obviously, we'd be here forever. This is already kind of a long podcast. So I wanted to shorten this up as much as possible. So I have basically looked at all the stories, and I've divided them up into, this week, there's 3 different categories that I feel like there's more stories. Like I'm trying to group some of these stories together for you to see are there any common themes that I saw within the last week? And there are. So this week, we're going to talk about intense weather around the world. We're going to talk about visas and travel because there's some changes going on there, as well as internet and social media. So let's get started with talking about intense weather and how that's impacting the people. In the UK, there is a storm. It's called Storm Kathleen, and that is causing travel chaos. It is also resulting in major power outages across the UK and Ireland. It's led to flight cancellations and diversions. It's obviously impacting planes at airports. In fact, these strong winds have also disrupted rail and ferry services. And not just in the UK, also in Scotland. In fact, it knocked out power for 34,000 people in that area. In Russia, Russia has declared a federal emergency in Orenburg in that region. It's forced thousands of people to evacuate, and it's not just that region. It's spread beyond that, and damage is really getting up there, guys. It's $227 million at the time that this story came out, so certainly thinking about everybody there. In Vietnam, they are experiencing a heat wave, and this is causing problems for their farmers. So they're blaming the heat wave on the El Nino weather pattern, and it's impacting a lot of their gig workers. So anybody that is like dropping stuff off or drivers, things like that. That also includes farmers, right? Farmers are outside a lot. Their crop yields are decreasing. In fact, they believe they may have lost up to 40% of their crops. And they also have this issue, too, with saltwater intrusion. The saltwater is getting into the fresh water somehow, and so that's causing some problems for them as well. Also, in Bogota, Colombia, 9 million residents are facing imminent water rationing. Again, they're blaming this on El Nino, and this is a major crisis. This has caused severe droughts and the worst dry season in years. Their reservoir levels are plummeting. It's the lowest in 4 decades for the reservoirs. And now the mayor has announced a rationing plan, and this includes some people not being able to use water for 24 hours at a time. Obviously, that would impact daily life quite a bit. All right, moving on to visas and travel. So that's our next category here. In New Zealand, they are changing their visa rules. They are overhauling their employment visa program. So there's been a surge in migration. In fact, the article said 173,000 people in the last year. So that's a quick look at their migration numbers. And they had to do something about it. So they came up with some new restrictions for people that are interested in this employment visa program. And some of these changes are they now have English language requirements for low-skilled jobs and minimum skills, as well as work experience in order to get these jobs. And then also the duration for, these visas, it's been cut. So if you get one of these visas, instead of it being available to you for 5 years, that's been cut down to 3 years. In Spain is stopping what they call their golden visa program. And this is an effort to basically be better about housing affordability. It's a major problem over there. Their golden visa program started in 2013, and what it did is it allowed non-EU investors to get Spanish residency by investing 500,000 euros in real estate. So that's a lot of money, right? I'm sure it helped them in a lot of different ways. However, the soaring costs of living are making it difficult for the locals, the Spaniards, to find affordable homes. Because if they're taken out by all these other people that are investing, then what are you going to do with the local people? So now they're cutting back on that. In El Salvador, they are issuing 5,000 passports, and they're doing this free of charge to qualified foreign professionals. And the professionals that were mentioned, like the jobs that were mentioned, were scientists, doctors, artists, and philosophers. There may be some other ones in there. These types of people are being granted full citizenship, including the right to vote. They are also waiving taxes and tariffs for the relocation of these families that come over to El Salvador. So some big changes there. And then we have a fun story. This is something you should really check out the video for if you like little dogs. So I always mess this up. Oh my gosh. Quick little story. When I went to read this story on the news, I must have messed up this city name a million times. Istanbul. For some reason, I want to say Istanbul. I don't know. It doesn't come out of my mouth right. And I just messed it up again. Istanbul. Okay, so that's in Turkey. At the airport over there in Istanbul, they have what they call a therapy dog team. Okay, so they are trying to reduce all the stress that comes with traveling, the anxiety that travelers have, right? So they have these dogs roaming in the airport. Now, they are supervised, of course. They're on leashes because, not everybody wants a dog jumping up on them or whatever. But they have these dogs out during peak hours, and the people seem to love it. They say it's a huge source of relief. It gives them happiness. People love dogs. Maybe not everybody, but I know when my family sees a dog, first of all, my kids just automatically run up to it, which scares me sometimes. But it does. It brings a sense of joy. And there's some really cute dogs, obviously, that are helping out the travelers in Istanbul. All right. So that's visas and travel. Let's move on and talk about internet and social media. We've got a handful of stories here. All right. So Elon Musk is going toe-to-toe with the country of Brazil. X, also known as Twitter, I'm never going to get used to that. X has blocked several high-profile accounts in Brazil. This is based on court orders. Now, reportedly, Elon Musk has some concerns about this. He is contesting these court orders. X has been threatened with daily fines if they do not carry out these court orders, and they're even talking about arresting the employees. Wow. Should they not follow through with these orders? But Musk is fighting it. Sometimes it's hard to tell if that's like a headline, like, oh, Elon Musk for the people. By the way, guys, if you have not heard us say this before, Elon Musk is not a good guy. Okay, his whole family is in the system. He grew up worshiping demons. He is not a good guy. End of story. So when you see headlines that are like, yay, Elon Musk, just enter with caution. That's all I'm saying. Okay, in New York City, they have a chatbot that apparently is not providing the best information. In fact, it's giving incorrect and unlawful advice to New York City small business owners. It's actually encouraging people to violate local laws. So I don't know if this thing needs updated or what, but this obviously raises concerns about reliability for AI-powered systems, especially within the government. And here's the other interesting thing. The city knows this is going on, and apparently they have refused to remove this tool from the website. So I'm not really sure what that says about the city of New York City. I'm not really sure what's going on there. Let's talk about internet labels. So the Federal Communication Commission, also known as the FCC, they have introduced what they call new disclosure labels for home and mobile internet plans. So you know what a nutritional label looks like? We've all seen them, on the side of the different food products that we buy. Well, the FCC got a brilliant idea and said, hey, we should do that for home and mobile internet plans because, on people's website, these providers, they list this stuff, but a lot of it doesn't make sense. And you're like, I don't even know what that really means. So they're trying to standardize how this information is presented. Starting this Wednesday, these labels are mandatory in the United States for major internet service providers. So you could actually search this story and see what it looks like. I mean, it literally looks like a nutritional label. So who knows if it's actually going to look like that? Is it going to look a little bit different? I'm sure there's some standards. And finally, let's talk a little bit about teen safety on Instagram. So Instagram now has this new safety feature to protect teenagers from receiving unsolicited messages that have nudity in them. They are using machine learning to find nudity in images. I don't know. I just got this image of this machine just looking at various nude pictures. I don't know. Got to get that out of my head now. But obviously we know AI can do this because this has been used in a variety of ways, not just for nudity, but to recognize copyright material and things like that. So this is automatically going to be enabled for users under 18. And it's interesting. So Meta is the parent company, right? So they own Instagram and Facebook. And this just so happens to come at a time where Meta is facing legal issues, both in the US and Europe as well, because these countries want more safeguards that protect kids, specifically protecting their mental health. So it kind of sounds like Meta is doing this to help with some of these legal issues that the company is having. Now it's time to talk about what we discussed in the World Situation Report. So Kimberly Gogan from the Office of the Guardian, she comes on the news and She's with us all 3 days last week. So sometimes she's really busy. She can't make it to the news, and then she might give me a statement or something to read at the end. But we had Kim for all 3 days. So Monday was interesting. Monday was Eclipse Day, right? So we all, waited with bated breath to see if, anything happened. The deep state was expecting all this nefarious stuff to happen. It did not. We actually recorded this a little bit later in the day. So normally we start recording my time, which is Pacific time, around 9 a.m. And it may take 2.5, maybe sometimes even 3 hours to record the news. And then there's a little bit of editing, and that's why it gets out to you guys in the afternoon. Well, the eclipse kind of fell right in that time. And Kim wanted to wait a little bit longer, to see what actually happened so we could give you the most up-to-date information. So like I said, nothing crazy happened with the deep state. We've talked in previous podcasts as well as on the news of all the stuff that they were hoping that would happen. But Kim did say it is a day of new beginnings, which I don't know if you felt that way, but I certainly did. And I posted a video for those of you who are members that are part of our app. I posted a video of my experience with the eclipse. I brought my girls. My girls were actually home from school. It's kind of a long story, but they were home from school. So we went outside. We were doing some grounding, and I just kind of shared my personal experience. And I said in the video, I just feel like this is a new start. And that's exactly what Kim said too. It's a day of new beginnings. So what was really interesting, what happened here is a covenant with source. So we talk about this a lot. And covenant is like, it's an agreement, okay? It's kind of like a big religious term. If you've ever been to church or synagogue or something like that, you've heard the term covenant, okay? But it's an agreement. And this boils down to an agreement that was made with source a really long time ago. So when we go back to the start of the dark age, we're now in a light age. We talk about that. We've crossed over into a light age. That was very, very recent. Prior to that, we were in a dark age, which is why our planet seems so horrible. And the start of that dark age was 3,296,000,000 years ago. So we were in a dark age for a really long time. Kim talks about the Holy Grail. Sometimes it's called the Holy Chalice. And this ties into the person that we know is Jesus and what his role was here on planet Earth, because it was very, very important what he did here. And it's funny because when Kim brought this up, she's literally talking about the Holy Grail. And I couldn't help but think about Indiana Jones because I think it was the third movie that came out for Indiana Jones, where they have all these things that they're doing at the end. And at the end, he has to pick the right goblet, right? And you're going to hear in the soundbite that I'm about to play that, there really was a physical goblet. I'm going to call it a goblet. She called it a chalice or Holy Grail. But it's like, it's a cup and it's made out of solid gold. So we're going to play the soundbite and learn more about this Holy Grail and why it was so important.
When Source gives his word for something, and we've talked about this before, he usually maintains that word till the very end. Mm-hmm. So therefore, the likelihood of Source breaking a covenant unto itself is, I don't think I've seen it happen just yet.
Okay.
Now, everything that we've been working on for the last couple of years pretty much came to fruition today, and there's a reason for it. So here on Earth, in Earth time, mm-hmm. for lack of a better term, because time is funny. When I say time to some folk, they laugh. 3,296,000,000 years ago is when the Dark Age began. Mm-hmm. Here. And there was ancillary covenants to beginning the Dark Age, ending the Dark Age, moving into the Golden Age that did not actually expire until today. Mm. So one of those covenants, this is where religion, science, and Source, and New Age movements, and all of these things kind of come together in full circle. So 2016 years ago today is when the covenant was made between, I guess you would say, the being that at that time brought what we call the golden chalice, and I'll explain that a little bit more, to earth. We all know that being is written in many different religious texts as Jesus and meant by many other names.
Okay.
Now, that binding that bound the chalice to earth, and I'll go into that in a minute here, happened, and it lasted for 2016 years. Now, we hear about the hunt for the gold, the Holy Grail, and trying to claim the golden chalice, and everybody's been looking for it, but nobody can allegedly find it. Now, part of the reason why this is so important for those people is because the golden chalice represents the soul of Source here on earth. And it's not, I mean, could it be an actual item? Yes, it's an actual item to some degree, but it represents the overflowing creation of the Creator throughout the multiverse on the light side of Source. Now, the chalice had been repeatedly bound by the dark side, which means it binds the soul of Source to the dark soul of Source, or anti-Source, once again. And this would happen repeatedly throughout human history, throughout the Dark Age. This time, things happened a little differently. So the chalice was a physical item that was actually located here on Earth under the Mount of Olives.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, did it actually look like a cup?
It actually looked somewhat like a chalice, I guess you would say. It looked
like a fancy cup?
It didn't have all the bells and whistles on it. There was, it was just pure gold. It didn't have all the gemstones as they claim throughout religious history.
Okay.
It was just gold, pure gold, just like the veins of gold that are in the Tree of Life, as an example, just like the golden flowers of life and essence and energy, just like the golden crystal flowers that hold the essence of the golden age, as an example, is what it looked like.
Okay.
So Source's ultimate goal, was to regain that part of himself, his soul, so to speak, and no longer be bound to darkness forevermore. And that was part of the covenant that happened with the death of the Christ, or the Christ, here on earth. So today was the only day that could be done. So the reclaiming of the chalice could happen today. Now, on the other side's part, I don't think on that level they really knew what this means or what could happen. From what I could gather from listening to meetings over the weekend, over the last several days, is they were expecting that there would be earthquakes, lots of earthquakes, death, destruction, the end of the world as we know it, that kind of thing. And the death would appease the gods, the ones they call the gods. We call them here Abraxas. We call them Draco. We call them fallen angels. That's what we call their version of the gods as written in their texts. We identify this as a being that is not a god by any stretch of the imagination, but they have the things that they worship and all of that. So if that had been renewed, it would have given equal amounts of power to both sides. And it could have been an opportunity to go back to a neutral age, but most dark beings don't understand what it means to not be in power.
Yeah.
Therefore, the GOLD agreement when he decided to pull the plug a little over 2 years ago now. So that meant that when this covenant finally came up for renewal, so to speak, it was not going to be renewed. Mm-hmm. So we can say we knew at that time we had already won.
Right.
We were fighting with Source. We were partners, so to speak. We were, and when I say we, I'm not just talking about myself. I'm talking about a lot of you that came here for this time. Maybe you still talk to people from your home. Maybe you still, some do, some don't. Maybe you're just kind of starting to wake up to that connection. Mm-hmm. But you're here for a reason if you're fighting on the light side. And there's a lot of people doing this. There's a lot of people clearing darkness, trying to make way for, I guess you would say golden age, a time with no darkness, no binding of organic life on this planet or this planet itself to darkness in any way. Mm-hmm. We don't, at least I can speak for myself, some things are not said. Some things are not told until it's the exact right time. Mm-hmm. And that right time apparently was at 2:00 this morning, my time, apparently. That was the right time to tell me.
Okay.
And there was a lot of work that went in today, and there were still some mechanisms here that were anchoring darkness to this planet. And sometimes, as I've told you in the past, I get woken up with a song.
Yeah.
And it's like that blaring alarm where it just goes off and the song starts playing, if you have a song that is your alarm. So today's song was Holiday by Madonna. Oh, dear God. The eternal wedding song that never goes away. You could go to a wedding 50 years from now, and that song will be the one that indicates it's now time for everybody to dance.
That's right.
And it doesn't matter what country you're in, mostly. If you have dancing, that song is the song.
Yeah.
So, there was a part of the song that says, there's going to be a celebration all around the world in every nation.
Yeah.
And to Source, apparently that means that we are going to celebrate all around the world today. Mm-hmm. But for Kim, that meant you are going to remove all the anchors of darkness in the following locations.
Which leads to everyone celebrating.
Which leads to eventually getting the chalice, right?
And the holiday.
And the holiday, yeah. The holiday, still waiting for the holiday. Still waiting for the holiday.
Oh, poor Kim. She definitely needs a vacation. Later on in that same report, she does mention specific places that are no longer anchors of light. Now, this is a little bit of a process. So Kim uses the alpha system to be able to take care of these operations that she does. And sometimes it takes a little while for things to dissipate. And she had a long laundry list of places that are no longer anchors of darkness. I'll mention a few of them here, but she definitely goes into more detail in the report. So, places no longer anchoring darkness on this planet. The Grand Canyon. Go figure. Maybe that's why we don't have access to most of the Grand Canyon. Washington, D.C., no surprise there with all the politics. Bermuda Triangle. Wonder why crazy stuff goes down there. Stonehenge, but this is the one in Spain. And the pyramids of Giza in Egypt. Again, those are the common ones. I picked the ones that you probably would recognize. There were a bunch of other locations that she mentioned. Now, when this process is done, which we were hoping, like today's Saturday, she said on Friday's report that she was hoping that this would be done by today. So I don't have an update on that. I'm not sure if it is done, but we're hoping very, very soon. When that process is complete, we will have only one source. So we've talked about source, we've talked about anti-source, we've even talked about a neutral source to keep the balance. Well, you don't need neutral if you don't have the dark, and the dark is completely dissipating. We are in the process of that happening right now. So that will be a lovely day when we only have the positive source. And Kim also believes in talking with other beings that may be what is holding up the financing to be able to get money and transfer money directly to the people. So fingers crossed, maybe we'll have an amazing report on Monday that things have cleared and we can now do that. We all want that. I know Kim wants that included. All right, so that was Monday's eclipse report. Then on Wednesday, we talk a little bit more about the eclipse because, the deep state wanted to see if any of their nefarious things did anything, which of course it didn't. But Kim did find something else that was kind of surprising that didn't show up until after the eclipse. It was actually cloaked by the light, so you really couldn't see it. It's very interesting. She called it a direct quantum tunnel, and this tunnel controlled black matter. So it would attach itself, this dark matter would attach itself to the light matter and could cause problems for us. And we think that this was also tied to chemtrails. So I'm going to go ahead and play a soundbite where Kim talks more about what this quantum tunnel is, how it was connected to the fifth density, and some of the problems that resulted here on Earth because of it.
So a location was discovered under Empire State Plaza in New York, right outside of Albany, New York. Mm-hmm. It's a very interesting place with some really weird sculptures and some other stuff, and you can go and check it out. But this apparently, this location was tied to what they describe as a trunk line. That's what the deep state called it. We would describe it more as a direct quantum tunnel to something that was hidden and cloaked in the causal plane of the fifth density. Now, this facility was not manned anymore, meaning there were no beings in it causing issues. But it had an instrument in it that I call an absolute sphere. And it does look like a sphere. It looks almost like a large crystal ball. And it was very similar to what we discussed a few weeks ago about that we found in Brazil. We talked about that they were messing around with the creator AI program there. But this one here exclusively was able to control dark matter only. So it would manipulate the dark matter parts that exist in all matter, including your person. And it was connected directly to this location in Empire State Plaza. Now, we have come to discover, at least in part, the reason why we've been seeing so many chemtrails leading up to the eclipse. Now, I'm not saying there aren't still orders out there to continue spraying them, but these were also going into our water supply. They were also going into our food supply. And the deep state felt, based on their knowledge, that this was all part of a larger plan. And it was. Because remember, dark matter is not like organic matter. If you want to affect organic matter, then you can do so by using the light, but the light is not going to cause damage to organic matter unless it's in defense of yourself or the life of an innocent.
Right.
But dark matter is a little different. The materials that they were using were not of human origin, and this is the reason why everybody was getting sick, because this sphere was running autonomously, and it was contained in, I hate to use the term ship because it's not a ship. It's like a mega structure, like a mini moon that sort of looks like the Death Star from Star Wars, is the best way I could describe it. And it was nestled right there in 0 point, but it was cloaked in the light, so we didn't see it until, due to the change that happened during the eclipse, the trunk line or the quantum tunnel snapped. And disconnected.
Okay.
So that was not something of our doing. That was a source thing. that actually happened. So it was feeding these types of materials through that trunk line to the location under Empire State Plaza for then further distribution by their dark workers, we know as the deep state. In hopes, according to the deep state, that there would be a situation that would arise to whereby we would all be getting sick. And that's why a lot of people are, during the time of the spraying, they are, we've always had adverse effects to chemtrails, but not like we have in the last few months or even, 6 months or so. A lot of people are getting a lot of coughs, a lot of colds, a lot of strange sneezing that just seems like an allergy, but is it really an allergy? A lot of people are reporting ear infection-like symptoms, and those types of things that are really making them truly under the weather after seeing chemtrails in their area. And a lot of people would mistake these things for seasonal allergies or normal change of the weather, springtime colds, those types of things. But they're a little bit harsher than normal and a little earlier than normal for seasonal weather changes. And it was due to this mechanism.
Okay.
Because the connection to the human being and however it would get into your system, either via taking a shower, water, you can be as clean as you want to be, but this stuff was going to get in you one way or another, and they were going to make sure of it. This would have allowed them to create a genocide situation. It was not part of the harvest program, but you could call it a backup to the harvest program. Because then they could manipulate the dark matter within your person to create, and everybody has dark matter. I know it has nothing to do with being a light worker. It just happens to be the molecular structure of the universe. So we all have it because we are matter. We are made of matter. Our physical vessel is matter. So it would have allowed for that mechanism to act autonomously and create things like disease and illness and sickness. But because it didn't have any beings controlling it and it didn't have alien interference, so to speak, it appeared to us that it was still in some sort of a testing mode with the connection. Now, things we would recommend, and again, these are possible suggestions, to consider doing some kind of a heavy metal cleanse, consider doing some kind of lymphatic stimulation, try to flush the stuff out of your system, drink plenty of water. It'll eventually leave your system. It's not something that can actually break the blood-brain barrier. So it's something that would exist within, your lymphatic system. Swollen lymph nodes is another one that a lot of people are seeing. So stimulate your lymphatic system. There are essential oils to help you do that. There's also, dry brushing and other things. Get the stuff out of your system. It'll take a little bit of time, but it's not impossible. But the good news is that main connection that was coming from beyond is no longer there.
So I'm kind of wondering if my sore throat and kind of the weird stuff that my family is experiencing now, I'm kind of wondering if this is all related. Because I've got a sore throat now, I've got a daughter that's coughing, I have another one that has headaches. And unless this is related to some sort of, ascension symptoms or something else like that, I'm thinking, this may be a result of these chemtrails. I remember seeing some chemtrails right above my house, and that's kind of rare, actually. We do see them in the San Diego area, but I rarely see them like right above our house. And that was not too long ago. It was before the eclipse, but I remember thinking, oh my gosh, they're out there in full effect. So take care of yourself. There's, like Kim said, there's some ways to detox and get this out of your system as much as possible. We're not entirely sure what's in this and if these chemtrails are a little bit different than other ones. So just be smart, right? Take care of yourself. So also on Wednesday, Kim talked about the top 5 Trump operatives going to Durango, where Kim is at. And they were trying to get information from the locals on what in the world was going on. And that is because the deep state had promised these operatives lots of money, just like they always do. And they thought after the eclipse, they were going to get all this money and then they were going to get their operatives back. They even went as far as to schedule meetings. I mean, these people are, excuse me for saying this, guys, but they're so cocky. It's like they'll make these plans to continue on as if they had money without even knowing if they have money. They do this all the time. So in this case, they scheduled 2 different meetings. They scheduled a meeting with the operatives, and then they did a no-show. And then I think people got a hold of them, and they were like, yeah, we'll schedule another call. So then they scheduled another call, and they didn't show up again. All right. So then the Trump operatives, the top 5 apparently, showed up in Durango wanting to know what in the world is going on. Of course, they're not going to talk directly to Kim because that gives her credit for being who she is, and they don't really like working with women too much anyway. So they stopped in and talked to the locals. And at that point on Wednesday, I was really hoping that they were interested in knowing the truth and perhaps acting on wisdom, because I know they don't get a lot of it. So when they do get it, maybe they'll act on it. Maybe they'll be smart. And then on Friday, I learned that did not happen. In fact, I think these Trump operatives are a little bit desperate at this point because they called on the Boogaloo Boys. Do you guys remember there was a speech that Trump did, and it got a lot of media exposure where he mentioned the Boogaloo Boys? And apparently this group, they just eat it up. Okay. So these are patriots. And a lot of them, they're former veterans, but they're untrained. And these Trump operatives are basically using these people to do Trump's bidding, which, as we know, if you've listened to the newscast before, Trump isn't even alive anymore. I know that sounds crazy because I know you're seeing his picture in places and you see video and he's at this rally or, making some speech about something, That's not Trump. So these operatives are trying to keep Trump alive in the sense that they have people dressed up like him, but it's not the real Trump. And it's horrible because these Boogaloo Boys obviously don't know that. They think they're being patriots, but really they're being used by these Trump operatives. And it's like they'll do anything for Trump. It's really sad. In fact, the Boogaloo Boys birthed January 6th, which is not like, if you look at our headlines, especially here in Western, part of the world, they act like it was this huge uprising. Well, cops were in on it. It is not what they make it out to be. It was just kind of a bad situation overall, just not good. Trump was in on it, and that was the actual Trump at that point. So it was just kind of a blank show, woohoo show. And so these poor guys, these Boogaloo guys, were part of that on January 6th. And now they're using them just to cause chaos because apparently the Trump operatives are just ticked off. And, they need people that'll just work on passion because they can't pay anybody. So that's what the Boogaloo people are doing. They're threatening people, and it's not good. It's not good at all. And they think they're doing this for Trump. Also, the other bright idea that these operatives came up with is that they thought they could get in on the action and start working with crime groups and cartels. Now, why did they think that they could do this? Because the crime groups and cartels have a bit of an issue right now because they need to get some money. They have money. They have money that needs to be deposited. It's considered new money. They need to deposit money into the financial system, but they can't do that. So Kim has access. It is her system. The Alpha system is her system. And in order to bring in new money into the financial system, not only does it need to have a number on the actual bill, but it needs to have an allocation number on the back end, which means you have to have access and control of the alpha system in order to have those numbers. And these people do not. So they can go commit their crimes, but then they've got this dirty money that they can't get into the system. This is a problem for the cartels right now. And the Trump operatives thought they could help them. They thought that they could help them launder this money and then take a percentage of it. This is their bright idea. Well, apparently they tried to do this multiple times and failed miserably. And now the cartels, like I said, have not been able to use this money. And this is a problem for them because they are not getting paid. They can't do anything with the money. You can't actually use it in the system. And by the way, when I say cartels, I know the image that you're thinking of because we all think of it. We think of like Mexican drug lords and things like that. But cartels are it's actually kind of a broad term. There are cartels for oil. There are gold cartels. There are the illegal drug runners. There are cartels for human trafficking. There are legal drug runners. So these are the pharmacy cartels, all right? These guys are kind of hitman too, not just hurting people, but also taking down businesses, you're destroying economies, things like that. So when we say cartels, it is a wide range of people. Now, it's not that we agree with what they're doing. That's just what they do, okay? So Kim was talking about this backlog, how they have this money, they can't get it into the system. Only if Kim granted them allocation numbers could they get this money into the system. Now the cartels are meeting this weekend to talk about what to do because nobody can help them get money into the system because, again, only Kim has access to this. So will they talk this weekend about possibly working with Kim? And is that good for humanity? So I'm going to play a soundbite for you now about Kim, and Kim is talking about how this might be able to work for us in the restoration plan. Okay, so keep an open mind. Take a listen.
So now the cartels are having a meeting to discuss the possibility and what is possible if they worked together with us. Because no one is getting the job done. Now, I don't want to scare you, but I want you to think about something for a second. Why would talking to the oil cartel, for example, benefit humanity? Now, oil today on the market is somewhere around $90 a barrel of oil, which is approximately, it's always skimmed off of anyway. They don't ever fill it completely. It's about 42 gallons or so. Black market oil sells for anywhere between $1 a barrel to $25 a barrel. It is the whole reason we have a thing called sanctions. Sanctions have no help, no way, I should say, of stopping a war, stopping a genocide, stopping rogue, quote unquote, rogue politicians or anything. All it does is it cuts everybody in on the market, on the cartel market, on the black market. Mm-hmm. So everybody's getting their 35%, off the top of that, and everybody's fat and happy because it takes about, maybe 50 cents to actually extract a barrel of oil raw. Then there's the refining process and all that. So if you were to talk to the oil cartels, what would happen to the market price of oil and gas at the pump?
It would drop.
Or natural gas. Yep. So how would this benefit humanity? So, 80 to 90% of all of the oil and gas traded in the world is done so on the black market. So what you're seeing, we don't have any shortage of oil or gas at all. Even the sanctioned countries like Russia still selling, they actually just put sanctions on Russian diamonds because Russia has a lot of diamonds as well. So now they're just being sold on the black market through the cartels, which then feed the big corporations like Tiffany's, for example. Further measures were put in place to control cartels as well, such as the GIA, the Gemological Institute. So if you want to sell and cut a diamond, it has a little number in it that's in the little, right around the diamond, and they call it your registration number for insurance purposes. But in reality, the Gemological Institute is as shady gets. The Gemological Institute will actually replace real diamonds with fake diamonds, and then sell those out to the people and then keep those other diamonds as value, because they used to be able to they would give them to their own hedge funds, or for example, BlackRock or some of these other large companies, and they would issue credit lines against the diamonds or the gold, and they controlled, so the Order of the Black Sun actually controls the Gemological Institute, all of the hallmarking companies. They don't own them. Allegedly, the Rothschild family owns them, but it's a check and balance to make sure they get their cut and their due. See? So putting sanctions on companies helps feed the black market. So now all Russian diamonds are going through the black market. Now they're still making good money on their rocks, on their oil, because they're sanctioned. Zimbabwe is no different with gold. The gold just goes at extremely low prices, and it goes across the border into South Africa and sold out from there. But the price you pay for gold is now upwards of $2,500 or something like that. Yeah. So on a side note, okay, now you have other sides of cartels. You have human traffickers, you have, slavery, sex slaves, you have all kinds of illegal drugs and those types of things. Now, given the fact that we know pretty much what the worldwide industry for these things is, we can automatically assume that there must be a replacement for this. So this is where the silent circle would have been of a benefit to us if we were able to make a deal with them. Because then the cartels, they could have taken the dollar deal. They could have picked up all of this stuff and probably run it better than Duck Dynasty can. I can tell you that right now. And it would have given them an alternative source of income equal to what they're making right now, but in a positive way for humanity.
Right.
They have a lot of routes around the world for moving goods, let's just say, around. That could be of benefit to humanity. There are lots of things I can think of, moving things into war zones, for example, maybe food into Gaza, as an example. So there's a lot of things that can happen if this actually takes place. Now, the silent circle is out. They're completely out. But will the cartels back away because no one is able to get them paid at this point? They are scratching their heads. They have just figured out the U.S. government does not control their own currency. The Federal Reserve does not control the currency. And maybe in part this was a test for them. They're not stupid people. You cannot run around in a gang and be, let's say, you must be resourceful to move things like this all around the world, and you must know all the routes, where agencies go or don't look, or where the DEA is not, or all these types of things. So they're not dumb people, but they're just kind of in shock right now. They've figured out the silent circle cannot control things anymore. They're having trouble moving black market goods around and having trouble moving money to pay for said goods. And this also goes for a lot of operatives and agency people too. So is there a problem when they failed today? The U.S. government failed to control their own dollars? Yeah.
The lies run deep with the deep state. And no one is being forthcoming with the information, right? Everyone's trying to hold on to their power as much as possible. So will we end up working with the cartels? I am not sure. We will see. We will see if they want to come to the table. There are definitely rules to this because they can't keep doing the things that they're doing. A lot of these people just want to make money. They have families too. Now, does that mean, does that excuse what they did in the past? No, but at the same time, if we want humanity to move forward, it does make sense to use the people that are already making things happen, not necessarily for the benefit of humanity. And in many times, it's the exact opposite, right? It harms humanity. But can we get them to change what they're doing? And instead of delivering drugs and children to elites and all this horrible stuff, they don't do that anymore. And instead, they help with the restoration plan. That's what we've been trying to figure out, and we have, Kim has had conversations with the Silent Circle, trying to make that happen. Each of these groups, they decide to make poor choices. And then we basically check them off and be like, okay, we can't work with them. We can't work with them. So now we're at the point where we're talking to the cartels. Perhaps. She hasn't done it yet. But that is a possibility. Now, on the app, I have seen a lot of comments about this. And some people are kind of fired up about this idea. Some people believe that once you mess up like that and, you start doing stuff that's harmful for humanity, you should just be written off. But again, when it comes to restoration, how quickly do we want this to go? And can we knock out, let's say we didn't work with the cartels, but they kept doing human trafficking. How is that helpful to us? Wouldn't it be better to work with them to get them to stop doing the human trafficking so they can do other things? We're I hate this expression, but we're killing two birds with one stone here, aren't we? So just kind of keep an open mind when it comes to this. I know this is a trigger point for a lot of people, and if they're bad, they're bad. Don't work with them. Move forward with humanity. That is so much easier said than done. And maybe that's what we will do. And Kim has said that numerous times. Listen, we can do this alone, okay? But if we want to do this faster, we just want to do things the smart way and help as many people as quickly as possible. And that wraps up what we talked about for the World Situation Report. So I appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for listening to our episode this week. Again, we mentioned a lot of things today. Do your research, have an open mind, constantly be asking questions, think critically. And if you enjoyed what you heard today, I encourage you to share this podcast with people you care about. For more information about us, and if you want to become a member and get access to all of our newscasts, as well as original content, you can get the complete World Situation Reports. Then you go to unitednetwork.earth and you can sign up. We even do a free trial if you want to test it out. And then we encourage you, once you join, to visit our online community, which is called United Chat. And we also have comments that you can leave under the video. So if you want to visit a particular newscast and leave a comment under there. I know sometimes if Kim has a chance, she goes in and answers questions, and I try to do that as well. It's our way of connecting with you guys and continuing this conversation. You can also follow us on social media. So at UnitedNetwork.earth. If you go down to the bottom of the website, we've got links to all of our social media sites. And we also have a really cool team that puts together clips from the news. So if you want to share something in particular, check out our social media, and then you can just hit the share button and share UNN that way. All right, well, this has been The Rundown, and I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.